Radhe Radhe. Today is Saturday, 27th April, 2024. Here we are for this recap video for today's Bhagavad Gita recitation session. We'll present a summary of everything covered in class, the usual format. And so here with me is Mummy.
Radhe Radhe.
Bringing up the screen, you're going to see our cover slide momentarily. So we had our continuing journey of chapter 11, and we covered verses 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. First up, actually, although I won't play it, but as a reminder for everyone, we did play out for you the recitation recording audio for chapter 11, verse 16, just to help set the stage after a gap of a couple of weeks due to the Bhakti Kirtan retreat and Navratri and Ram Navami celebrations. And also because today's 5 verses and many more in this chapter 11 are of the Tristubh meter. So more syllables, sometimes more difficult. So just to help set the pace for tunes and the tune and the meter. With that, we're going to get into all the 5 verses, listening to a rendition of them one time, and then Mummy will mention an important Sanskrit word from each one. I'll briefly then explain the crux, and we'll hear the rendition one more time. So here goes, chapter 11, verse 16 and beyond.
Anek bahudar vaktra netram pashyami tvam sarvato nantarupam nantam na madhyam na punastavadim pashyami vishveshwar vishvarupa kiritinam gadinam chakrinam cha tejo rashim sarvato diptimantam Pashyami tvam durnirishyam samantad Diktan larka dyutim aprameyam Tvamaksharam paramam veditavyam Tvamasya vishvasya param nidhanam Tvam avyaya shashvat dharma gupta Sanatanastvam purusho mato me Anadimadhyantam anantaviryam Anantabahum shashisuryanetram Pashyami tvam deeptahutashavakram Swatejasa vishvamidam tapantam Dhyava prithivyor idam antaram hi Vyaptam tvayekena dishascha sarvaha Drashtvadabhutam rupam ugram tavedam Lokatrayam pravayathitam mahatman. So we'll see some important words from verse number 16. Let's see. Anant Rupam. Very easy also and very important also. Anant means infinite. Rupam means forms. So, Lord's infinite forms. Anant Rupam. From verse 17, Tejaha Rashim. That means that Lord is abode of splendor. Tejaha Rashim. Verse 18, Veditavyam. Veditavyam means worthy of being known. Verse 19, Hutash. Hutash means everything emanating from. And verse 20, Vyaptam. Vyaptam means that Lord is pervading all over, something which is pervaded. So these are the 5 words. Over to you, Gagan.
Thank you, Mummy. So now let's quickly understand the crux of all these verses. Chapter 11, verse 16. By the way, 4 out of the 5 verses today, the catchphrases are questions. So I'll just note that up front. Chapter 11, verse 16, the catchphrase here is sight appetite. Arjun, of course, sees the infinite faces, forms, etc., and even the stomachs of God, of Sri Krishna. And of course, to be able to have the appetite to see all those sights, again, that only happens, of course, through a blessing, through the grace that Sri Krishna provided to Arjun. We'll mention that in the next verse or so. Chapter 11, verse 17, we now ask as a question, crowning glory. Arjun sees Sri Krishna, wearing a crown. He sees the discus. He sees the club, and so much more. But is that the crowning glory? I mean, is that the supreme and most noble attribute or feature of Sri Krishna? Probably not, because everything perhaps is going to be extremely noble and attractive, and there's just infinitely many items to look at. But of course, Arjun is able to see all this only because even though it is blazing and very effulgent, he gets the grace of that divine vision from Sri Krishna. So that's how he gets that special sight. And amongst all the forms and views he's having of the Lord, one of them is the four-armed Vishnu form. In fact, we did a spontaneous quiz question in class. I'll ask everybody to think about that again over the next week or two, and maybe we'll bring it up in the next session. Chapter 11, verse 18, here it's a simple catchphrase, scriptural truth. And in fact, Arjun is acknowledging that on one hand, he's getting to see the personal form of Sri Krishna, and he's also noting that that is the same as the absolute, the ultimate truth that is mentioned in the scriptures. So Arjun is recognizing Sri Krishna as is to be learned from the scriptures. Chapter 11, verse 19, question here, catchphrase, coolest eyes. Arjun, amongst other things, now sees Sri Krishna as having the moon and the sun as his eyes. The moon can be typically a very cold place, but it also gets very, very hot. The sun, indeed, of course, is extremely hot. So are these the coolest eyes, temperature-wise? Not necessarily, but of course, in terms of being awestruck, the feature of them, certainly very, very cool. And in fact, both in chapter 11, verse 19 here, and chapter 11, verse 16, 3 verses ago, Arjun mentions that he sees no beginning, no middle, no end of God. So that's just to mention the absolute infinite expansiveness of God. Just to remind everybody, we showed in class as well, and hopefully you saw this in various places. That's the flyer here, trying to represent, perhaps Sri Krishna or the, absolute truth here with the moon and the sun as the eyes. There's a question at the bottom right, also related to the sun and moon, and then the concept of visionary. We'll let you ponder about that. And when we get to Bhagavad Gita study chapter 11, we'll talk about it at that time. Finally, we have chapter 11, verse 20. The catchphrase here is God-fearing. Arjun mentions that the entire three worlds are trembling looking at that sight, or having Arjun look at that sight of Sri Krishna. So Arjun can see the three worlds trembling. And so that is, of course, because God is the supreme lawmaker and everything is acting under, Sri Krishna's direction and accordance to his will. But again, the question we posed in class, and again we'll revisit when we get to Bhagavad Gita study, is do each of us want to be God-fearing or something else? With that, we shall now listen to a rendition of these 5 verses one more time.
अनेक बाहूदर वक्त्र नेत्रम पश्यामि त्वां सर्वतोऽनन्तरूपं नान्तं न मध्यं न पुनस्तवादिं पश्यामि विश्वेश्वर विश्वरूप किरीटिनं गदिनं चक्रिणं च तेजो राशिं सर्वतो दीप्तिमन्तं पश्यामि त्वां दुर्निरीक्ष्यं समन्ताद् दीप्तान्लार्कद्युतिम् अप्रमेयम् त्वमक्षरं परमं वेदितव्यं त्वमस्य विश्वस्य परं निधानम् त्वम् अव्ययः शाश्वत धर्मगोप्ता सनातनस्त्वं पुरुषो मतो मे अनादिमध्यान्तम् अनन्तवीर्यम् अनन्तबाहुं शशिसूर्यनेत्रम् पश्यामि त्वां दीप्तहुताशवक्त्रम् स्वतेजसा विश्वम् इदं तपन्तम् द्या वा पृथिव्योरिदम् अन्तरं हि व्याप्तं त्वयैकेन दिशश्च सर्वाः दृष्ट्वाद्भुतं रूपम् उग्रं तवेदं लोकत्रयं प्रवयथितं महात्मन्. So hope this recitation helps you to practice these 5 verses. Over to you, Gagan.
Thank you, Mummy, once again. And indeed, yep, that gets us towards the end of this recap video. Continue studying hard. And as we mentioned in class, a new month starts from next week. We shall meet after a gap of 2 weeks. So no class next Saturday. We shall reconvene on Saturday, 11th May, 2024. What that means is you can use the extra time, including the extra hour that you won't have recitation class next week, to practice. These are difficult verses. We saw that through the participant experiences in class, but a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of keenness. So please go through the recording, just not just from this video, but even from the full chapter 11 video Mummy has. All that is available through the community portal. Check the description below as always, and study hard. And we'll try to discuss some of that when we meet again in a couple of weeks, and then move on to the next 5 verses. Thank you so much. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.